Ben, how you doing?
Dude, a cool day in Texas. That's all I'm doing. How are you doing?
It's a freezing day in Ohio. There's snow on the
Ah,
ground,
that sucks.
and more is coming. But
Man, that sucks, dude. We're in the let's see, what are we? It's 64 here, man, and that's too damn cold for me.
it's in the 20s here.
Oof. God bless you.
But we have a hot album to talk about. Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast.
Absolutely, man.
This album brought raw memories to me. Um, when I first heard this song, I was walking into a home and there was a party going on, and a guy threw this on. And I first heard the first licks of Invaders, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm like, and then I heard Bruce singing, and I'm like, man, it sounds like Maiden, but it can't be Maiden because it doesn't sound like Paul Diano.
Right. So this was Bruce's first album, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And Invaders, what
What
a
what an experience.
go
Oh
ahead.
no, I was going to say, well, what an experience on your part, to have been a part of. When did you hear it?
I heard it the year it came out. I actually
Oh wow,
got to see the tour. They
I was still soup.
they opened up for Judas Priest's Scream for Vengeance tour for Priest.
Wow, yeah, that's an experience, man. Like I just told you, it's I haven't heard this song or this album in a couple years, and it's doesn't stay in my head like a lot of the music I listen to. So it was nice to go back and refresh. And like I said, I hear it through 40-something-year-old ears now than
Yeah.
late teens and early 20s. So
And it starts out with Invaders, and Invaders is a killer opening track. I think it really was a song that not only is driving, but it brought the focal point into Bruce's vocals, and it's a great vocal track for him.
like I say with every every album review, it's just kind of my stock, one of my stock evergreen things to say. I mean, it throws you right into it,
Yeah,
especially Maiden being so established now, even listening to it from that first note, you know exactly who the hell you're listening to, and unmistakable guitar riffs, and of course Harris on bass. Wow, I mean
yeah.
that's what I've picked up on now as an established musician and not necessarily a guitar player that I was listening to 20 something years ago. The bass is outstanding through and through the entire album. I mean, it
Yeah.
is just so prominent, articulate, and it really, really does. As a guitar player myself, I can respect the piss out of the bass on this one, and this particular album makes me want to play bass.
And then we go into Children of the Damned, and to me, the album's like like a firecracker. Like it starts out with a fuse, it starts out slow, and then all of a sudden it just comes in and kicks ass throughout. And I think it's really that the band is so tight at this point after the first two albums, and the production on this whole album is amazing. But I love the production of the song and the way this song was put together.
Well, you know that this song was inspired by the movie, right?
No.
Yeah, so I've got my cheat notes here. The 1964 film Children of the Damned. So it was inspired by that, and yeah, and talking about the production on it, it's amazing how tight, not just Maiden, but a lot of bands were because they had to be because of the way that things were recorded. Now, I can jump in the computer in a digital audio workstation and record multi-track and be as tight and as good as I want to by myself. And thinking about doing that with three or four other individuals, is it's daunting. And so those guys were on top of their game. And I think that's why these guys are just at the, will remain at the top tier forever, as one of the metal bands, one of the foundational metal bands that just fucking nail it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and through, the thing that stands out for me is, you know, it's always, I think it's a tough for a band to transition with a new vocalist and to get accustomed to the way things are. And the difference between Paul Diano's voice and Bruce Dickinson's voice is quite different.
Yeah.
And I think they really wrote this music and the accompaniments to fit Bruce so well.
Yeah. No, that's good, man.
And then we go into Prisoner, and you may know, and I'm not exactly sure, but I believe the intro to this is actually from Star Trek.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I don't have any notes about that. So, I was wondering what that was from, and I didn't, unfortunately, just didn't have time to look it up. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
believe,
it was strange, and I could see that.
and this is just a great tune throughout. Musically, it's very solid, and I think it's one of the overlooked tracks on the album.
It says here that the band had to get permission for the intro sample from actor Patrick McGoohan, whoever the F that is, who reported he reportedly said, "What do you guys do?" And they said, "We're a rock band." And he said, "Do it." So, yeah, it says it's also often considered an early showcase of Adrian Smith's maturing songwriting style.
Yes. There's no doubt about that. And Adrian's always been solid. I mean, period. And we come into track 4, 22 Acacia Avenue. And this song, it really shows a more diversity of the band, changes the tempo, and just killer guitar riffs and great storytelling throughout.
So it says, and I'm not familiar with this, so you'll have to educate me. It says it's part of the Charlotte the Harlot narrative that
Yes,
was from the first album, right? Okay.
right.
So I don't know about that. I don't know a lot of Maiden lore. Yeah, I'm guilty as frickin' charged. And that it was also co-written by Adrian Smith and was originally the song from his pre-Maiden band Urchin. Did you
Wow.
know that? Is that fact? I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
It very well could be. I do not know.
Huh. It also says they have not performed this live since the 80s.
Wow. I believe that though.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
This, this info, it could be fucking wrong, man. I don't know. Um, there's too much info about too many bands that I have up in this empty head of mine. And so I don't know. I mean, that's just like, that's crazy, being a songwriter and a musician thinking about, and I don't perform live or anything, but being such an established band, I mean, they've got a lengthy catalog, and so
oh,
I'm sure it would be
absolutely.
hard to fit in, but not performing a song for, almost 50 years, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then we come into, of course, the title track, Number of the Beast. And this
Oh
is
yeah.
one of the breakthrough songs for this band. It really gave them a lot of acclaim. And it reminds me of seeing them live because that was a thesis why one of the things I didn't mention when I seen Maiden open up for Judas Priest is that of course there were hundreds of religious people outside passing out pamphlets saying the number of the
Yeah.
beast is devil's work and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. Satanic panic's not really a thing anymore, but I can't imagine, how scary, it was for a lot of people. I'm religious and I'm a Christian and I do remember buying this album with a bit of apprehension just because of the content. I mean, it is, it may not be a big deal to a lot of people, and that's fine, but the shock value of it is in your face for sure.
sure,
The great song, great, fantastic song. And, as far as I'm concerned, besides like Run to the Hills, it's one of the most memorable and notable songs that these guys have kicked out.
sure, absolutely. And that track takes us right to Run to the Hills.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and this band is great with taking history and making a point from it. And I think this
Right.
takes us back to an ugly time of American history when the way the Indians were treated and everything like that. And the video displays and showcases it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it's written from two different perspectives, right?
Yeah,
The Indians and then the colonizers or whatever
sure.
the hell you want to call them. Yeah, it's also the first single released from the album,
Mhm.
and it was Clive said it was also the hardest drum recording on the record.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a. I mean, even still, whatever. I mean, there's still a sense of fear, and I think it was inspired. No, I'm thinking of a. We're talking about Run of the Hills. I'm a song behind, like an idiot, whatever. So I was gonna say something about Number of the Beast too, whatever. But we'll going back to that song, Number of the Beast. That was they said that was inspired by one of the Omen movies.
Ah,
Did you ever see any of those?
yes. I
I
only
mean,
seen the
for
first
the
couple, but
you can see. Well, let me jump back to that track, whatever, just for a second, whatever.
sure.
You can see just how much angst it caused because of. I mean, anybody that's ever seen any of the Omen movies, especially, and they're ones that are kind of timeless. They're scary as fuck. So
Sure.
you know, so I can see how that song. Anyways, let's move to Gangland. I'm sorry, man. I jumped back behind.
That's all right, man. Gangland's another track that's very underrated on this album, I believe. Not many people talk about this song, and I think it's solid through and through. Um, it talks about gang life, and it's just it's not the longest song or the fastest song, but it's solid throughout. And that's one of the things about this album is that there are no weak tracks on this album. And so maybe I think sometimes certain tracks get overlooked.
They said that they regretted including this over Total Eclipse, and they called it a rush decision due to time pressure, which I'm sure at the time was a pretty big decision. And while yes, it is a great album front to back, top to bottom, maybe from a band perspective, they're more than entitled to kind of have that because
Sure.
I'm always of the mind of what could it have been, but it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter because of what we got. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and it was a from my recollection, this is very kind of punky. There's
Yeah.
a lot of punk influence that I hear throughout the entire album, anyways. Whatever. But yeah, this one had a very kind of punkish feel to it.
Yeah. And then we come to my favorite track on the entire album, Hallowed Be Thy Name. This track is just in my opinion, one of the Iron Maiden's strongest songs in their entire catalog. And Bruce's vocal at the end, his sustain on that last note, man, is just ridiculous. I mean, the power the man had on vocals, and he still does today. Still seeing footage of him recently in doing this song, still nails it. It's absolutely amazing.
It's a timeless song. It's one of the first song I ever learned to play by Maiden was Wicker Man, and that was in what 98, 99. I can't remember when that
Mm.
album came out. And Brave New, it was based on Brave New World, I think. And that was my first one. But Hallowed Be Thy Name, I ended up learning that song. That was one of the greatest songs I think I've, especially at the time, ever heard. And I had heard Cradle of Filth's cover of it, and they did an outstanding job of covering that and really bringing even more energy to it. Which I don't know how you can do that.
Right.
And and yeah, that's just such a great song, great composition, man. As a musician, I a lot of my stuff is no shit derivative from that song alone, man.
And I remember seeing the band this tour, and you know, they only had the album to tour with and to do, they did some backtracks, they did Iron Maiden, stuff like that as fillers, but as an opening act, they only had so much time before Priest came on. But
Yeah.
man, just so solid. You just knew when you seen them that it wasn't gonna be long before they were headlining.
So, one of the things I've thought about, after listening to this, I talked about how, looking at it through a different lens, in 2025 versus the first time I heard it in the 90s, as a kid, as a teen, is that, and I keep using this term, timeless this is, and it's not, it's kind of in the same way that, you know, Van Halen or Journey or some of the, some of these bands that some of these songs they're still played on the radio for a reason. And some people will argue that they were just pioneering the way for other musicians. And to be quite honest, man, in 2025, I've come to find a lot of music, and this is just my opinion. I've come to find a lot of music really still. There's still a lot of really good stuff out there, and I'm not knocking anybody in particular or anything like that. But this album is one of those that it's got such roots in it that it will, it's going to stand through a hurricane and a tornado and whatever other genres and subgenres come across, and everything is truly going to be so derivative of this type of music.
Sure.
And that's what I really am starting to in my later years, getting all this gray, is start to understand that these guys, they were tight, they were original, they were pioneering, they were foundational, and it's just awesome to be able to turn something on that's 45 years old almost, and it still kicks the shit out of you
Yeah.
more than some of this modern shit that's got so much overproduction, and it's so tight, and it's got so much groove to it, whatever. That's not to say that the new shit isn't good, but this old stuff, man, is just absolutely a kick in the pants, dude.
Sure. And to think of the recording processes back in the day, as you mentioned, you know, to be able to pull this off is what is absolutely amazing. It shows the level of musicians that are in the band and are still in the band today. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and that's another point too, the fact that they're still doing it. And I hear this all the time from people about, whoever's up there that's still playing, in metal, Pantera and Metallica specifically, and these guys need to quit. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of inclined to agree to some point, whatever, that, but I'm not going to downplay the fact that these guys haven't had, a 40-year plus history behind them of doing this every freaking night and still just being able to do it, with the
Sure.
same type of passion and gusto that they did back then. They may be limited in mobility or whatever, and forgetting to turn the oven off and shit, but that muscle memory, that stuff right there is
Sure.
going to stay with you forever, and it really is just kind of amazing, and it's something that. Like I keep saying, as a musician, is something that I hope to retain well into my 60s, 70s, and 80s if I make it that long. It's such a gift to be able to do that, and obviously these guys have had a platform to perform on stage and in car stereos and tapes and cassettes and stuff, that I don't care if they're 70 years old and doing this and can barely walk around and shit. It's an honor to get to hear this stuff still.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it still hits as hard today as it did back then to me,
Oh
you know.
yeah.
And sometimes, like even sometimes I've heard remasters where I'm like, oh man, I don't know,
Right.
but the remastered version of this album is absolutely spot on. It hits hard
Yeah.
as it did back then.
And one of the things, one of my kind of nitpicks about remasters, in some cases, it's really, I think you and I have talked about this before. In some cases, remasters are necessary, maybe, and really do enhance. But in a lot of ways, I feel like sometimes remasters almost kind of overlook some of the inherent flaws
Sure.
that some of these songs and stuff come with. The wrong notes, the kind of shit being out of time and out of tempo and stuff like that, which part of getting older is starting to realize that organic asymmetry is a lot of what makes this stuff what it is.
Sure.
And I feel like sometimes, I don't know if I've even listened to the remasters of this. I've got an old the original CD. I think the CD's from either the late 90s or the early 90s. I bought it used at a store called Hastings many, many, many years ago. I've still got it. And it's obviously not a remaster, but I've heard a lot of remasters from a lot of other bands and older songs and stuff lately that it almost enhances it too much. Personally,
Sure.
Bob, I'm one of those dudes that if I'm gonna watch Predator's my favorite movie, always will be, always has been. If I'm going to watch Predator, I want to watch it on VHS. I want to see all the crackles and flickers and
Right.
imperfections of the film and even the shitty quality at the time because that's what, and I don't know if you feel the same way, like you said, remasters can be good, but
Sure.
I truly do like all the things that were quote unquote wrong with the album. Does that make sense? Am I being a little too overbearing
Absolutely.
about that? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've always felt, you know, throughout all the since this album has come out, it's been one of my top 10 go-to albums. I mean, it's just
Wow.
always been there for me. And it's
Yeah.
just I just felt like it was one of the moments, and there's been many moments for Maiden where they just always were able to hit the right buttons or do the right things at the right time and make the right motions. Even as they've
Sure.
evolved through the years, you listen to later materials, somewhere in time or Power Slave, still driving, just killer musicians top to bottom.
And damn, I lost my train of thought. There's a reason Power Slave. I know why I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about Power Slave. The last time I even listened to that was in 2002, stoned on Mike Butler's couch, about to run down to Austin to take my cousin to pick his truck up, and we're sitting there listening to Power Slave, and somebody's playing something on PS2. They're playing like a Madden game or some shit on PS2, and
Mm.
we're ripping a acrylic pink bong, and that album's just jamming. And I'm a little burnout kid in the fucking early 2000s stuff. That's I haven't even thought of Power Slave, man. But what I was gonna say before I got off track with my ADD mind is there's a reason that this British influence is still mimicked today by modern bands and how creative they were and the guitar harmonies and how they did that. The first one that comes to my mind is In Flames.
Yeah.
Obviously that's from that Gothenburg, metal scene and everything, and they've got their own style too. But there's no doubt that how derivative Maiden was of an influence
Oh,
on those guys.
absolutely.
And it was a lot of American bands and shit too. I mean, like I said, Hallowed Be Thy Name was it was a kind of a pinch point for me as far as learning how to come up with riffs that complement each other and guitar leads and everything else, as well as kind of the energy behind it. And
Yeah,
these guys, you know, they I think they'll forever be monumental as an influence for a lot of people, man. I mean, even
absolutely.
more so, I think, than Metallica for metalheads. I think Maiden stands out, Everybody says there's the big four, the Slayers, the Anthraxes,
Yeah.
the Metallicas, the Panteras, the Megadeths, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we can name all these other bands, but even before that, Maiden was sticking metal up people's asses
Oh,
well
sure.
before all these other cats. So,
Absolutely.
it's Priest also. Priest is obviously one of your big influences, and I haven't listened to a lot of them, but I think Maiden's always, always, always going to be there. Long after they're gone, long after we're gone,
Oh, yeah.
Maiden is going to be on the wall, man.
And this to me, of course, as you can probably tell, is a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I was waiting. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 out of 10, whatever, because and nothing against Maiden. I'm not a super Maiden fan. I love everything I've ever heard from them, but Maiden's not something that I spin regularly. And I guess, maybe this is a lesson that I should.
Yeah, I'm glad you got a chance to revisit it because
Yeah,
sometimes it brings us back and I've said this over and over, and it's so true that albums, songs are to me like pictures in time. As soon as I hear an album, it takes me back to when I first heard it.
100%. And yeah, I mean, something is something as big of a bookmark in your life as seeing Iron Maiden on this tour. I mean, that's amazing. That's things I can't comprehend. You and I were what, 16, 17 years apart,
Yeah.
and I like to think of myself as a pretty big metalhead. I mean, my first concert was Pantera. That
Hell yeah.
what a way to get what a way to get your cherry popped. But
That's right.
it's still not, you know, the 80s metal and stuff that was, you know, really fucking laying that pipe well before any of these other cats were.
Well, I wanted to thank you again for taking time to review this album with me. It's always a pleasure doing it with you. I I couldn't see myself reviewing an album with anyone other but you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. And for those that are watching, we're fucking back, you know. We're gonna
Oh yeah.
figure out a good format and a good process, I really like reviewing these older albums. I mean, nobody's off limits, you know, as far as I'm concerned. But some of these older ones, man, I think the older I get, Bob, and I was honestly glad because we were gonna do 10,000 volts,
Right.
you know, by and I'm glad you picked this because the older albums are the more we kind of get in the weeds with music, the more I kind of get bored and lose interest in metal, which unfortunately just kind of comes with being a musician. I think
Sure.
sometimes looking for other inspirations and stuff. Hell, dude, I've been playing a lot of country lately, a lot of George
Yeah.
Jones, a lot of Marty Robbins, and you know, foundational shit, you know, for
Right.
a different genre or whatever. I love going back and listening to some of this older stuff, man, and I'm glad you picked that. And it's a very welcome reunion for getting back into the rocked album reviews, man.
Well, thanks again, brother. And I look forward to doing the next one with you.
Yeah, brother.
Cheers.